priming on Tumblr, but I haven't done anything else. Right, so.
I have the link to Discord. No, I can do Twitter too. I've got Twitter pulled up. So.
Cool. Do you want to do Twitter? I'll just retweet your one.
Yes.
Cool.
And I can reblog you on Tumblr.
Yeah. Hey, Scala, how you doing? See, we're a wee bit out of tune. See, we missed 2 weeks and we don't have all of our setup.
I know, we're completely off game.
Cool. Locked and loaded on Tumblr. And now, see, that is what we can do now. You can do the Twitter, I can do the Tumblr, and it saves us all the time. That's what you like to see. Cool. Sound.
It's been a while. It's been 2 weeks.
It has been 2 weeks, and it's nice to see people in chat saying that they've missed this, because I've missed it as well. I feel it's been weird. It's been weird not having that touch point every week. We've obviously spoken around it, but
we have, but it's been weird not talking this week.
Yeah.
Interacting with everybody else as well.
Especially when we've wanted to, because I was at a wedding last weekend, and I would have quite preferred to have been doing this. To be perfectly honest, I couldn't say that at the wedding. Joy is frozen. Oh no, what's happening there? Ah.
Am I just not moving? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, no, you're good now. You're good now.
Oh, really? This camera's really zoomed in on my face. There we go.
We want to see all the best bits.
Am I muted? I shouldn't be muted.
No, Joy shouldn't be muted at all. See what happens. We accidentally leave for 2 weeks, and now.
Off for 2 weeks and everything goes to shit. All the settings are wrong, and I do have a new camera. I don't think that would be affecting it though, because we were fine on Discord.
Joy's volume's low. What about this? Are we happy now? Are we all happy now? Speak, Joy. Speak.
Oh, hang on. Move my mic forward. Is that better?
Hope so.
Is that better? Right. Okay.
Okay, so it looks like we're fine. Got nothing.
I moved my mic further forward because my desk has been moved as well, so that my microphone was further back than it usually is.
You've got a whole new setup, like new webcam. See, like this is what we can blame it on, actually. Yeah, so we can blame it all. It's Joy got new bits of kit.
I've got a new bit of kit, and we're working out the kinks and everything else. So.
But it looks like we're fine now. Still quiet. Fucking hell.
Eyes at 99, Joys at 5. It was funny because I couldn't hear you on the Discord.
Yeah. Which is weird because, like, I've got your volume turned up to max, and I also have the audio of the computer up to max. And I'm having a nice lolly, yes. Okay, we might just have to piss with the cock we've got, to be honest.
You might just have to deal with it for a while. And then we'll figure it out again. But it should be working fine. Like, I've got all my settings on the...
It's a cider flavoured ice lolly. Which is the...
Is that any better for anyone?
I can hear you absolutely fine.
Although now I can't hear...
Me.
I.
Oh, for fuck.
Never mind.
When we say it's a cider ice lolly, what it really is, it's just a fancy way of saying apple. There is no alcohol in this ice lolly at all. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. Yeah, but people can watch me enjoy this ice lolly.
Anyway, how's everyone doing? How's everyone been in past 2 weeks.
Sorry, just 2 weeks. Totally forgotten how to actually behave
I
on
know,
a
we're just
podcast. What
sitting
the
here
fuck
just
is
going,
fuck?
how's it going? How's everyone's life doing?
Keeping on.
That's about it, really.
What have you been up to,
I
Joy?
almost but didn't make it today. There was 2 tornado warnings last night. So that was fun. That was a fun thing to deal with. But yeah, no, we're doing good. I've mostly been out with migraines, unfortunately. But that's also the weather. But, and avoiding my screen as much as possible. If you've seen on Tumblr, I've not been on as much. But I also started reading, or rereading, I should say, Anne Rice's Sleeping Beauty trilogy, which is actually 4 books. It is awful. Do not recommend.
What's got you reading that?
It was Sistlin on Tumblr was rereading the Conan barbarian novels and was complaining about the purple prose. And the argument is E. Howard is not purple prose in comparison to Anne Rice, who also came up in the discussion. And I got curious and I wanted to see if I still owned the Anne Rice erotica novels, and unfortunately I do. So I started reading them and I realised I'd made a terrible mistake with my life, but it was too late to stop now. So
That's fair.
Joy shirt update. It says cryptid collectors agency.
Agency.
It's alchemy. It's not alchemy. It's agency. Got nice big Mothman, aliens, lots of aliens. Just mystery nothing at this point.
when we started streaming, actually, like you were sitting with it like there as you are just now. Actually,
Yeah,
it's a wee bit cut off, and I could only see crypt and then what looked like an O, and I was like, is Joy wearing a crypto t-shirt? That's very very out of character.
New hunger pangs dropping.
Get Vlad now. But no, that's good. So like, apart from weird erotic novels, you're doing all right.
Doing good, doing fine. I'm doing better today. I'm actually upright today, and I'm not dealing with a. This is the first time in like almost 2 weeks I've not had a migraine.
Nice.
So the planets aligned. I had a migraine last night from the storm, but I'm actually doing okay today. I think it was the weather pressure finally gave.
Your subconscious is like, fuck, I'm gonna have to be chatting with I later on. The last thing I don't want to chat with I and have a migraine, so I'll dial it back once.
Lights on me whilst I've got a migraine, so my yeah. And yeah, everyone's saying they miss Sistlin on Tumblr. I'm really glad. Sistlin came back purely because of Sandman, so everyone go thank Neil Gaiman because Sistlin came back because Sandman's on Netflix.
I don't know any of this.
Sistlin is everyone confuses myself and Sistlin because she also has a demon rose plant, and we're also kind of friends and everything else. But Neil Gaiman's graphic novel series, The Sandman, is finally on Netflix, and it's actually really good. I started watching it last night, and I watched I think it was the first 5 episodes before I passed out, before the storm hit and everything else. But yeah, it's a good watch if anyone's not into it yet. But it's really funny watching everyone on Twitter lose their shit, going, "Oh, it's woke, it's so gay, it's been like that since 1989." It is the most faithful adaptation of Sandman you could get. So it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
I do find it is like I don't know anything about Sandman at all, and I don't really to watch any of the kind of Neil Gaiman stuff. I watched the first season of, was it Good Omens, which was fine, but like totally not my thing. Like it just I don't know. I just kind of bounced off it. I thought both kind of main characters were good, but I just nah, it's not my.
It's either your thing or it's not your thing. And for me, I've been waiting for a Good Omens adaptation since I was 10 years old. So to me, I was really happy with it. But I'm also a huge Terry Pratchett and a huge Neil Gaiman fan. So to me, it was my exact cup of tea.
Nah, that's fair.
But yeah, Sandman's kind of the same. But am I suddenly loud? Am I suddenly being?
No, it was Tundra. Thank you very much, Tundra, for resubscribing. But because I've turned your audio to the max, I you know what? I'll turn myself down. That's what I'll do. There you go.
I might be able to hear you now that I've changed my settings as well.
Fuck knows. We'll try and we'll need to do like a test stream and figure it out. I'll dial myself back. Yeah.
The alerts are always at 10 though.
Yeah, I don't know, because have you got a new mic as well, Joy?
I don't, but I had to plug everything back in again, so I don't know if things reset. But it's the new camera, and I'm wondering if it's that you're getting the audio from the camera, not the mic. But you shouldn't be, because I set everything up on my Discord that it shouldn't be doing that. But let's just fiddle a bit with settings. Everyone can just tell us how their weeks have been.
Yeah.
Whilst you eat your lolly, and I'll do this.
It's true. It's one of those ones. It's one of those really drippy lollies. So like, you know, when the moment you take it out and it just starts to melt, almost as if it's ice. But it starts to melt really quickly, and you've kind of got to like. You don't even end up like proper sucking on it. You end up with like you're kind of sucking the sides as it starts to fall apart. Now you're muted and I can't hear you at all. What did you do? What setting did you toggle?
How about now?
Oh my god, okay, that's loud. Fuck. Jesus, okay, I think that means that you're... Okay, so much better from Joy. Fuck. I had my... so I can toggle my fucking volume on my speaker. I was just like, Jesus Christ, my eardrums. Cool. So it looks like that's good.
It must have been the Discord was set to pick up the audio from my Yeti mic, which it should be doing, but it was for some reason not connected. So I just reconnected it, and that seems to have rebooted things. And then I had to turn it on and off again, as you do, and that seems to have fixed it.
Cool, awesome. Okay, we can actually begin now.
We can have a conversation now, and everyone can hear us.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I've just been attending various family events. I'm done now. That was the last wedding. Last weekend was the last wedding. No one in this chat and no one else is allowed to get married. No one is allowed to get married for at least 9 months. I'm out. I'm out. It was like a wedding gauntlet. However, that does make me kind of uniquely positioned to rate weddings now. I'm going to be a wedding critic. You don't hear much about that, but you know, it was. You're
just on Yelp giving them reviews.
I feel like I can very much fulfill that role now. But no, it was fine. It was just like knackering. Like there's only so many times that you can like gear yourself up for like a wedding. Especially if you're drinking and stuff like that, it's just like oof.
That was there was 1 year I had 6 weddings in 6 months, and I legitimately went into hibernation after that. I was like, I'm seeing no one, I'm talking to no one, I'm doing nothing. That was nice, but
yeah, I mean, like...
Yeah, they take a lot out of you. I mean, it's a lot. If you're the one getting married, it takes a lot out of you as well. But when you're a guest, it's also a lot as well. Because something you're usually traveling, you get your formal wear on, you've got everything else to try and remember as well. It's I mean, it's an experience.
I mean, the good thing is like attending so many weddings like that. I now know what I would want out of mine. So like for a start, I'm just gonna totally rule out a religious ceremony. Like that's.
Oh, we did that too.
Yeah, that's not happening. Like the last one we went to was like a Catholic one. So it was very, very heavy on the the God side of it and less about the couple, the actual ceremony. I quite like hearing a wee bit about the couple in the ceremony, but instead we were kind of getting like readings from like Corinthians and stuff, and you were kind of like, okay, that's fine. I quite like the drinking from the quaich. You can have that, and then there's also the hand tying, which I quite like as well. Just like those kind of wee niceties that you can add into your ceremony. And of course, you can like tie it in tartan and all the rest.
We literally asked. So our wedding, I have quite a fun story about our wedding officiant. It was her first wedding, and she was nervous as hell. But we went to the civil service place in Glasgow to register and everything else, and they were going, "What kind of thing are you looking for?" And we went, "What's the quickest you can do?"
We want married. Come on.
We want married. And they said to us, well, the minimum amount of legal time in the UK for a wedding ceremony is 15 minutes. And I went, that's what we're doing. So it was literally just a 15-minute ceremony of like this. But poor Nancy, this woman Nancy, flubbed her lines. She was so nervous. It was her first whole thing. And we were just kind of standing there. She's going, I'm so sorry. And we're just going, this is, who cares? It's life. But I think we were a good first experience for her. But something they don't tell you is that the wedding office, at least this was our experience in Glasgow, they will phone to speak to the bride to make sure you're not being coerced into marriage.
Yeah.
And I thought that was good. I thought that was a good, we only want to talk to the bride or whatever. And it was, they phoned me and said, are you getting married of your own free volition and everything else? And I think there was an extra barrier as well, because obviously Mothman was, we had a wedding visa and everything to get. But it was, they were taking all due diligence and care to make sure every party involved wanted this, and we weren't being either forced by parents and or whatever. And it was good. It was a really the process was really nice, actually. Like the whole thing, they made it as streamlined as possible. And I'm going, I could not imagine adding a religious aspect on top of that, because
it was the weight of it.
It was the weight of it. I was like, I can't do it. Like, it's both have ADHD. We want it now.
yeah.
Instant gratification takes too long.
Let's cut to the food. Food and the dancing, please.
Yes.
But no, I think it's quite like, learning about the like ceremonies and stuff. One thing that I find really interesting is, how there's always the scene in like romance things, the whole I object.
Yes.
So if you object, or if anyone objects, even jokingly, the wedding has to be delayed for 24 hours.
I would kill someone.
As in, it doesn't matter if they then sit back down and go, "Oh, I'm just kidding." Like, apparently, like that is like a full stop. Like, there is 24 hours that you need to wait if anyone objects during the ceremony.
So what do you do with the reception and everything else you've got planned?
Fuck knows. But another thing that's quite interesting is obviously when you want to get married, you have to like go and speak to the registry first, and they actually publish it, so people can actually object before the ceremony actually takes place, which is again just very, very funny. But I like, imagine there's someone who does that as a prank, right? Someone who goes around delaying people's like fucking weddings. But yeah, I
would legitimately be so angry if that was me. And it was like, fair dues if it's like a legitimate concern. If you're just doing it for that, hi, just a wee bit of fun, I would probably bludgeon them with my bouquet. I would probably have gone off.
Yeah, it's like it's probably just as bad as like proposing at someone else's wedding. Like, luckily
as long as you've cleared it with the bride and groom, great. If you haven't, fuck off. I catered weddings. I did a lot of hosting weddings at one of my jobs, and that happened so many times.
Really?
And there were so many brides just absolutely chewing through their own, their lip filler and everything else, just absolutely just furious. But they're trying to be, yay, so happy for you. But there was one bride who planned it with her, the guy. It was her maid of honor, and she planned it with her, the fiance or whatever.
Okay.
And that was lovely, because the bride came over and said to us, we know we didn't tell you this, but there's actually going to be a proposal. Can you make sure there's extra champagne and everything else? And we were going, absolutely, yeah, no bother. They were lovely. But all the ones that were surprised, the bride would immediately go to the bar. It was just rage drinking.
Like, I think I would immediately cringe if I saw a proposal. I mean, even if it was planned, I would be like, because like I've seen one, like, where the bride throws the flowers. Some brides do that. Like, I have seen them pretend to do that, but then turn and actually like give it to the person, and then the person turns around with the flowers and they're getting proposed to. I don't know. It just seems a bit But anyway,
it's their own personal thing. But if it's your wedding, you can say, "Don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't you fucking do it." But yeah, that is the wedding gauntlet done with now. You're
free for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I hope so. No spontaneous weddings allowed.
This is when Mothman and I announced we're redoing our vows.
Yeah.
Just to fuck with people.
I will make one exception, and it is if that happens. I won't do anything else. The rest of you can get fucked.
We'll do it when we re-immigrate and we'll have a reason for a party. That's what we'll do.
You could do it as a joint one, like a welcome back to Scotland party.
Yes.
But yeah, that's been pretty much it. And this is the first weekend that me and Jessica have had in a while. That's just not having to do much, and yet it's also been our most productive weekend.
That's when you start blitzing through that. We had to do that. We blitzed through the house yesterday because we had someone coming over, and we're like, "Crap, we need to clean."
Yeah.
We can't let people see we live like this. This is not good.
No, but it's great. Like one of the things that I've realized is like see going for a long walk in the morning and getting like back in the house like early, like pre 9 or 10 o'clock on a weekend. You feel like the rest of your weekend is so fucking long. It's wonderful. External pressure, the ADHD tool. I like that. So yeah, but yeah, that's been it. So, since we've not been here for 2 weeks and we've been really letting everyone who's watching down, I suppose we're gonna have to do a wee bit of a recap to like what's been happening. And I'm gonna start. We're gonna talk about the Edinburgh Fringe.
Please do.
And bin strikes. So at the moment, there is a lot of bin strikes in Scotland. So council workers who, empty the bins and all the rest of it are on strike for good reason. Average salary for a bin person is what?
Sanitation worker.
Sanitation work. Yeah, that's a very American term.
But it's also the official term in the UK as well.
Yeah, is it? Because
my mum used to work for the council, and it was the sanitation department. So it was the sanitation worker is the proper term, but nobody uses it in the UK.
I mean, everyone is just bin men. Blanket term is the bin men. And like I learned that like the average salary for a bin man is like what 21,000. And of course, when you've got like the cost of living and stuff like that, going up, it's like that's shit.
Yeah, it is, and it's a dangerous job, and it's a necessary job, and it should be better funded. And
I mean, it's funny. Like it literally took 2 days for Edinburgh to actually look like a shithole. And like Edinburgh's normally absolutely lovely, as in like normally.
Well, so much of their money comes from being picturesque.
Yeah, exactly, and it's. I've kind of hated seeing all of the reactions from just like pretty much everyone. Like you've got very like upper middle class like English performers who have been talking about, oh, why did they have to do it when we were visiting the city? You have
make the most impact, you wankers.
Yeah, pretty much. You have a British media that is just awful. And there's been every single fucking column and shit written about it. And then of course you've also got the council. So the interesting thing is you've got a Scottish government, and you've got the SNP and the Greens were kind of supposed to be running Edinburgh Council, but it's now a Labour administration backed by the Tories and Lib Dems. And of course, it's all went to shit kind of under them, basically. And, they're now trying to, like, pass the blame on. They don't want to do that, but they're also voting in, like, strike-breaking actions, so they want, like, other council workers to start to clean the bins. They've started, using... I don't think they've gone so far as to use agencies yet, but they've, like, people have been, like... People have been strike breaking and just scabbing, but like they've been doing it voluntarily. So you've now got this kind of like middle class Edinburgh type person who's going, we're emptying the bins, and they go around litter picking with black bags, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing? So that's now starting to spread. So there's more councils in Scotland. Falkirk's going to be impacted, and really all you can do in this instance is be like, well, fucking support the strikers, because, like, I think we're.
It is such a back in the day, in 1920s there was the transport strike, and they got the upper class echelons to basically work the buses and do trade routes and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And they're like, oh well, we pitched in, we can do it, therefore you're complaining over nothing. And I'm going, that's basically the same thing. It's people
Yeah.
playing at doing it being working class.
Well, that was the thing that fucked me off the most, because you had these types of people taken to Twitter, and it was like, it's turning like a job into a hobby. So it was hey, we're cleaning up our city, look how great we're being, and like posting the photos on Twitter and Instagram and all the fucking rest of it. And it's like, that is someone's job that they're being horrendously underpaid for. Like, how can you not see the actual big picture here? But again, this is just going to be ongoing now. I mean, the teachers are set to go on strike pretty soon as well.
There just needs to be a mass general strike.
There needs to be
in the UK.
yeah. But we're heading towards a general strike, and to be honest, if we don't do it now, then when's it going to happen? We're hearing now that energy bills could potentially go up to $5,000 a year. Right?
That my mum was told her energy bill would be $5,000.
And what we've got to avoid is the jump being $5,000, but then they cut it back to 2.5, and everyone being satisfied because it's a cut.
Yeah.
When the reality is, energy was always about £800 a year maximum. So you just got to kind of keep that up, and the problem is obviously we're in the summer, no one's got the central heating on. We're going to be entering a winter where people are going to start using up their gas supply, and that'll cause bills to fucking soar. I mean, people and this is the thing with the British media that I fucking despise, actually, is how they start to sow the seeds so that the population's just generally complicit in all this. So there was a post that's kind of went semi-viral on Tumblr that I put, but it was 4 screenshots of headlines, and it was blackouts can be quite romantic, and have we tried eating moldy bread? Some moldy food is safe to eat. Are we drinking too much water? It's
Mad levels of dystopian. It's don't become addicted to water. It's that kind of level of I mean, I literally saw one the other day, which was we eat too much anyway, was one of the headlines that I saw. Yeah. And then there was also, being cold is good for the immune system. And I was like, yeah, being cold, not fucking freezing to death in your house. There's going to be so many elderly and disabled and vulnerable people are going to be affected by this. And it's just a continuation of the Tory austerity measures that have been killing thousands of people a year in the UK for over a decade at this point.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying. It is genuinely terrifying.
I mean, I think one of the there's the utility side to this, but then there's also unfortunately there was a butcher's down the street that's now completely shut down because they were paying, I think they were paying about £800 a day to run the fridge cabinets that the meat is stored in at the front, and you're like, that's not fucking sustainable at all for anyone. So of course, this is the thing, and we'll take the bin men for example, council workers. So council workers are facing very little pay. I think Scottish Government previously agreed with COSLA, which is the Council of Local Authorities, agreed that it was 5%. Now 5% isn't enough, right? But we've got a fixed budget. What else can you do? You probably have to find that money from elsewhere, and maybe we can find that money from elsewhere. But COSLA then only offered 3.5% as a pay rise. So if you have that from a worker's perspective, that lack of pay rise means that you're not spending it in restaurants, you're not spending it in shops, you're not spending it locally. So then they can't afford to operate, because they then need to put their prices up, and people are going, well, I can't pay those prices. We have a restaurant that's 2 floors kind of beneath us that's had to completely close up shop because they either had to put up the prices of their food, which meant less customers, and of course, like this is the problem is the supply chain stuff as well. Now you can see that there's like a food shortage elsewhere in the world. Obviously, the stuff that's happening in Ukraine's affecting like grain supply and all the rest of it. But there's also a shit ton of bureaucracy involved with like Brexit, and
Yeah.
like I think it's funny. There's so many business owners that are being like, yeah, it's Brexit, but then you've got like a media that's like, oh, COVID's been hit your business hard, hasn't it? I mean, yeah, COVID did. We adapted, but it's actually having to pay shitloads of money for like the basic bureaucracy of like transporting goods and importing goods. Um, so I mean, the thing is that like in times like this, when inflation's expected to hit 18% in the UK, we're now we're in a position where like the government should almost be encouraging spending. Like
They
if
should.
if the Bank of England can print as much money as it likes, right, and injecting that money back into the economy, and obviously you get into the discussion with like hyperinflation and all this kind of stuff, but like again, there's been a massive transfer of wealth from working class people to the like wealthy bosses throughout the whole pandemic. A lot of the profits of the railway and stuff like that has never actually been passed on to the workers. It's been, like a boss that's getting £5.5 million a
Yeah.
year to like operate stuff. Sorry, I'm off on one now. But
That's what we're here for, though. We're here for the rant and the.
yeah,
But yeah,
it's
as Daster
incredibly
Bunny's
fucking
pointed out
annoying.
in the chat, it's as Daster Bunny pointed out, they're not dumping sewage into the sea because of the pandemic.
Yeah,
They're
I mean,
doing it because they've removed the European restrictions and they can get away with literally murder at this point.
see, the weirdest thing about like being in Scotland while England goes through like droughts and water pipe ban and like water hose bans and all the rest of it. Now, obviously, that's been suggested in Scotland as well. Obviously, it's like some of the heat waves and stuff really did impact water supply, but again, like relatively temporary in regards to what's happening in England. And definitely like other parts of the world at the moment now, like rivers are drying up in France and all sorts of shit. But the like in Scotland, it's really weird because like, and some of you might know this, but like Scotland is probably one of the dampest places in the world that isn't a tropical climate. And we're
Although we do have palm trees in Ullapool.
for some reason, yeah. But but like that's quite amazing, and obviously it means that when we face a heat wave, things are bad. That's terrible. But like one of the things that is quite radical about like Scotland's water's all publicly owned, so Scottish Water, when the Scottish Parliament and the kind of waves of the Scottish Parliament, the various parties that have led it, in its initial, and then of course the SNP, like there was a lot of emphasis given to completely remastering the kind of main water systems, whereas in England it's all privatized. Like I like in Scotland you don't have a water bill because your water's included in your council tax. So I'm not paying monthly for my usage of water or anything like that. It's not something that we've ever done here. Whereas like water companies in England, it is very much different, and it's kind of regionalised and all the rest of it. But again, if you've got a private company that's running the water for profit, they're not going to be spending the extra money to make sure that that supply is in tip-top shape. So everything from like old shitty pipes to actually securing the reservoirs and all the rest of it, that's just not happened in England. So yeah, it's been kind of weird just like watching that. Because again, I've never lived in England. I don't know how the water supply thing works, but it's something that we haven't really like thought about. And as Jessica mentioned, like there is
They've
old
also got a ton of
claystone
lead
pipes.
They've
Yeah.
also got a ton of lead pipes because in Scotland we actually had a thing. I remember it because it was when I was wee. My parents had just bought their house, and the Scottish government actually gave them money to take all the lead piping out of their house.
Hmm.
So that was a thing as well. And if you didn't take it, then you later on had to pay to do it yourself, basically. But it was part of the
Yeah.
whole refurbing the whole water supply for Scotland. Was they literally came in and were like, "Oh, you've got lead piping. We'll take it out. We'll pay for this to get done." And if you didn't take them up on it, then you were responsible for it. If it later got found out that you had lead piping.
Yeah.
Because I remember that because I grew up in a wee dinky suburb town, and our water supply is the original Victorian waterworks, and they maintained how it looks, but they redid everything. They did all the internal stuff, and it's lovely to look at. It's a really gorgeous place to walk around, but it's the safest stuff you can use. And I remember when we went down south, my mum will only drink bottled water in England because she
I'm the
doesn't. She
same.
says you don't know, and it's nothing. It's not like you can give them. It's hard water. Hard water is difficult to drink when you're used to Scottish soft water, but it's nothing to do with that. It's literally just, well, the pipes probably have lead in it.
I
So
like
that's
lime scale and fucking everything.
lime
It's
scale and
like
yeah.
I mean, it's just like I'm one of the two. Like in the shower, right? Sometimes I like open my mouth and then like fucking spit it out. I know this is really gross actually for a lot of people, but like I don't drink the shower water, but sometimes you fucking rinse your mouth out with the shower. I would
Yeah.
never dream of doing that in anywhere in London. It would just be like death in my face, in my mouth. It'd be horrible.
Well, the water here in where I am in Minnesota is all lime, and it's great for your heart, terrible for your stomach. But I have to heavily filter all the water before I can drink it because I've delicate taste buds of Scottish water. But it's why tea is so much better in Scotland as well, because the water is so soft, but
Yeah.
it's also
And
highly treated without excess chlorine.
Yeah. And the further north you
It's,
go, the better it is. Like,
is
see if you have a fucking like, it's even nicer with like coffee and stuff like that. Like coffee from a wee cafe up in Inverness is fucking amazing.
It tastes almost sweet without having to add any sweetener into it.
Yes, exactly.
It's insane. It's actually insane. And then you go down south and it's like just burnt bean juice. And it's just terrible.
Burnt bean just. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, but like that's basically what I mean. Like the UK is going through a time, to say the least, at the moment, and it is just going to get worse. Obviously,
unfortunately.
we are waiting on a Tory candidate being fucking elected. It doesn't matter; both of them are shite. But to be honest, I don't even want to talk about it because it's like both of them are fucking dreadful. They're both awful people. Whoever gets elected, don't worry. They're like one is not better than the other. They're both shit.
They're both just evil puppets. It's really, there's no change between the two.
So if we cross the Atlantic, have they changed Joe Biden's medicine? Like, why is he all of a sudden like? Why is he all of a sudden being
getting
like
shit done?
kind of? He's like kind of cool. Like he's been coming across as like kind of based on like a lot of it. There was
his COVID treatment. His COVID treatment.
there was an interview I saw, and he was trying like I think she tried to joke about him having dementia, but like it was like he couldn't even be bothered trying to remember. Was it Marjorie Taylor Greene's name?
Yeah.
He was getting, oh, you know the woman who always gets angry at, I forget her name. It was just like and of course the White House was doing all of the call outs on the amount of loans.
Just a call out screen of everybody that was scammed and loans.
That was amazing. Like I tell you what,
some intern in the White House was having the time of their life.
Yeah, I mean, the White House hired a new social media manager and speechwriter. I mean, I'm no fucking surprised because
I would believe it.
Like,
but,
it's
one thing I do want to touch on very briefly, because you mentioned that everyone keeps saying that he has dementia. One thing that people don't seem to realize is that Joe Biden has a speech impediment, and the media over here uses his speech impediment to say that he's unfit for office and that he's got dementia and he shouldn't be doing these things. A lot of the time he says the wrong word because he's trying to get a word out and he can't do it, and his brain filters, because that's how speech impediment, some stutters work. is that you will literally say the wrong word because your mouth can't do the other thing. So that's just one thing that bugs me a lot, because I've been seeing a lot of things on Tumblr with, well, he's obviously got dementia because he does this. It's not dementia. He's not unfit to be... You can dislike him or like him, but you can't turn around and say that this is a reason not that he shouldn't be in office. It's literally a speech impediment that he's worked very hard to control. But one of the things they do teach you, as someone who did used to have a speech impediment, is to say literally any word so that you don't get stuck in the stutter pattern. And I haven't had a stutter in almost 15 years. But see, if I'm anxious or nervous or on the spot, it does come back. And now that I've started it, I can't stop it. But
that's really interesting, though.
They do tell you to say any word to get over it, so that you don't get stuck in the loop. So that's just one thing that I've been seeing a lot that bothers the shit out of me.
So right wingers trying to rip into someone who was really just making fun of.
They were just being ableist.
Disabled
they
person.
were just being ableist. They were making fun of
Jesus Christ.
Which, surprise, surprise.
Yeah, they're being a fucking thing. But I mean, like from what I've seen, like I know that people haven't been a big fan of like Joe Biden, because obviously he did say he would cancel all student debt and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like, someone was like, has he been told he's dying or something? Because it's like he's
COVID made him see the light. Like, he got COVID. He got resurgent COVID treatment or COVID infection. He thought, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna do the thing.
Like I think this is really something that's happened. And I think it's the first time I don't remember another instance of this happening, actually. So I think there's definitely something to it. But the whole let's go Brandon, dark Brandon, Joe Biden with like red eyes and shit like that. I think it's the first time I've ever seen like the slightly more left than the Republicans. I'm not going to say the Democrats are left wing, because they're not.
Oh, no.
But like it's the first time I've seen a term being stolen from the far right and used against them. Because I've seen quite a lot of like Democrats being like, you know what, fuck it, let's go Brandon, dark Brandon's coming for you, that kind of thing. It's the first time I've actually seen that language being almost pinched from what was originally a right-wing thing. Because now you've got Democrats buying let's go Brandon hats, and originally it was a kind of right-wing in-joke.
Well, it's code for fuck Joe Biden. Fuck Joe Biden. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And it's, as everyone's pointing out in the chat, the midterms are coming up in November.
Mm-hmm.
So they're pulling out all the stops, but this is the first time they've actually done it.
Yeah.
And it's actually been something meaningful and impactful. Not as good as it could have been, but you have to consider also the political climate they are working with. It is still huge. So, we are one of the families that will be affected by the student loan relief, and it's one of those things where you kind of just want to sit down and cry for a bit. And it's huge for the rest of our family as well. It's huge for all of our friends. Like, we're all just sitting there kind of going, oh, that, like, I'm lucky. I'm from Scotland. I graduated with zero debt because Scottish University is free up to a certain point. And we were quite lucky as a married couple because we only had one massive amount of debt from one person going to college.
Yeah.
And the rest of our friends, they had like 200,000 of debt and everything else, and that's now gone.
Whoa, Mothman, what are you doing?
He's celebrating the fact that student loan's been cancelled.
Thank you very much for gifting 10 subs. I hope all of you who were granted subs there enjoy your emotes. But I mean, I think that's a kind of amazing point. Is like, if it increases Democratic turnout, it's like, wow, decent policies get people enthusiastic about stuff.
And the thing is, it means we can keep dragging them left. The Democrats, it shows that holding them accountable is actually working.
Yeah.
And it means when we are able to hold them accountable and hold their feet to the fire, we can drag them left. But the thing is, we need to get the centralists to stop being centralists first. We need to actually get some sort of leftist policy through the door. And to me, the student loan forgiveness is actually a very good start to that. They just need to keep following through with it. Because the thing is, if they did follow through with it, they would get the same zealous backing that the right-wingers currently get.
Yeah,
Because the right-wingers
100%.
turn out for every election. They turn out for local election, they turn out for the big elections. And I think
like old
Democrats,
people.
yeah. But I think there's a lot of in leftist circles to be very complacent, because for a lot of them, they grew up with democracy, they grew up with having rights, and then when it gets taken from them, it's, well, the system failed. Well,
there's always a thing in, like, it's like the people on the left that really don't like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. It's like, because they expect her to be more left wing than left wingers in, like, Europe, for example. That's what they would like to see. But it's like, to be honest, I would suppose I'm a wee bit more of a gradualist, like, in my approach. Like, you've kind of got to start somewhere in America, and like,
it's not going to be overnight change, because if you do that, it will require civil war, and that's
that's not a good idea.
People, I've seen people advocating for, we just need another civil war, and I'm like, you don't realize what you're saying.
No, you don't.
You do not realize what you are saying.
So back to the student loans for a second. I did see a list of colleges that were apparently getting all of the student loan forgiven.
Yeah, there's some You've said it, and now my brain has blanked on
like
what it's called.
I don't know what it was, but it was like a group of colleges. I'm not sure if they're all part of the same kind of umbrella, but it was like, if you're like, I remember it was like, if you belong to any one of these colleges, you'll have like all of your student debt cleared, which
they phrase it as lower income. It was certain lower income colleges, but what they actually mean by that is the colleges that are predominantly attended by black students. And because he can't come out and say that, because he'll get huge backlash, but it tends to be predominantly the lower class colleges that are attended by a certain demographic that are getting a lot of their stuff completely forgiven, because they're the people most affected by college debt in the US.
I mean, I don't.
Yeah, so
see, sitting in here, and it's like that's amazing though. If you think about how many people will have the courage to start their own business off the back of it, or like all the rest of it. I mean, how many people have been completely hindered by just college debt their entire life? Maybe they can't, it's factored in when they try and get a mortgage. It's when they try and get a loan to start a business. It's always like, there's all of that. Like, to have no debt is really quite
also
amazing.
If you paid things off this year, you can actually apply to get it back, provided you paid something. I think it's before March. I need to find it again. But you can actually, there's appeals you can go to if you were paying stuff up until March of this year, 2022. You can get rebates, and you can get refunds for certain things,
cool.
provided you're within the income threshold. So that's another thing too. You should contact your, if you think to yourself, well, I've already paid it off, I can't get anything, you can contact your student loan debtors and ask them about it. And there's forms and stuff you can fill out, but you will be reimbursed.
Decent.
Some of it, I believe. I'd need to look up again to see it. The refund up to the forgiveness limits if you paid during the payment freeze, that's what it is. Which is still good, because some people were paying it down because they were anticipating getting hit with massive, as soon as it unfroze, everyone was going to get fucked. Yeah. That's the thing. As soon as it unfroze, it was going to be hell.
But yeah, no, it's really quite interesting. And to be honest, I'm kind of hoping it continues. I really want to see more.
I want it to keep going.
I want to see more funny Biden quips, because I saw another thing that was impressive, and I was like, I can't believe the White House hadn't used it as like a promotional image, but there was like Biden at a union rally and a protest. I'm not sure if it was pre-presidency or whatever, but it was like he's an old guy in it, but he was like, he's making a speech and there's a banner behind him that it's like, "We stand for the unions," and it's like, holy shit,
he's famously pro-union, and a lot of leftist circles here are talking down about him against it. I'm going to be honest, I do not like Joe Biden. He would not have been my first choice, but a lot of the thing that gets lobbed against him is inaccurate.
Mm.
And he is massively pro-union. He's always been pro-union, and it's it's weird to see people going, oh well, that's new. I never knew that. And it's like you need to research people and not just do the clickbait headlines.
Yeah.
Um,
See,
and
Sky's
yeah.
asking about the right wing Hunter Biden movie, which is like a Breitbart production.
I
Um,
haven't seen it. I
so,
refuse to engage with
so
it.
but
Um,
I've not watched the trailer, but I know who's in it. You've got Billy Piper's ex-husband, I think, playing Hunter Biden, the guy Fox.
oh God, that cunt.
The horrible
Yeah.
prick. Yeah, I think that's who it is. But the funniest thing is you've also got the lassie from the Mandalorian. You know, the right wing lassie who was the cool mercenary
Yeah, and then they took her
rebel.
off the show.
Yeah, but like she was like the cool rebel mercenary Gina Carone. Yeah, so like she like so she's in it as well. She's in this like proper far right movie, and I just find it so like what a fucking like downward spiral she's been on. Right? How do you go from potentially having your own Star Wars spin-off, because they were coming out with like
It
a
was hugely popular.
well, I mean, like there was the Mandalorian, but then she was gonna have her own. I think it was like like whatever Rebel Commando or whatever the
Yeah.
fuck she was. Like there was going to be a spin-off there, and how do you go from that to like this like right wing like Breitbart movie? Like who the fuck is going to touch you after that? Rangers of the New Republic. That's it, Sky. I find that funny as fuck. But yeah, that's I think it was a mixture of anti-vaxxing and transphobia was what
Yeah,
got her punted
she showed
off.
her true colours and then she went full right wing because she got shunned by the lefty circles, which
And she left Twitter
yeah.
and went over to the what was the far right what's far right Twitter
Isn't
called?
isn't it Manta something or
I fuck. It was the same shit. It was just
I don't dedicate brain cells to keeping track of it, to be honest. I've got enough of Truth Social, is that a
no,
thing?
no. It's,
Um
it was one that Donald Trump also went to join at one point when he got kicked off of Twitter. It was like it was touted as the big like Parler. That was it.
Parler,
It was
that's the one.
Parler,
That's the
and
one.
I
Thank you,
always
Gaming Humans.
I always find it funny when right wingers go, well, we'll just make our own Twitter, and then they go and they
Hookers and
realize
blackjack.
they realize that like none of the people that they actually want to indoctrinate are on those platforms, so it just
Yeah.
becomes like a weird right wing circle jerk. It's funny,
I was
but
going to say echo chamber, but circle jerk works as
so,
well.
yeah, a big old circle wank. You know how it is. Um, but yeah, I think like that's that. I think you know, political roundup. That's pretty much it. We could go further
Yeah.
afield, but
We
yeah,
could go for
we could
forever if we
we
were
could we
allowed
could
to.
definitely we could talk about all of the stuff. But again, 2 weeks.
2 weeks. That's
But I
mm,
suppose like this is kind of like inspired from like a Tumblr ask that I got, and I obviously made that legendary TikTok.
fabulous TikTok, which I was howling at that. I was going, what is the why? What's that? And then the camera started shifting. Your little torso started shifting angles, and I lost it completely. It was
I
good.
just, it took so long to fucking film, but because I was zooming in and I was trying to get my shoulders positioned with like the guy's shoulders. It was bad,
You
but
put more effort into it than some cover designers.
it was yeah, it wasn't good, but I think it prompted quite a lot of questions, because I think one of the questions that I do get asked on Tumblr, and I imagine you've experienced this as well, but I was just like, it's the American writers that try and handle Scottish culture with like the same sort, like, I mean, I think there's multiple kind of facets of this, but one of them is like Americans applying the same sort of like sensitivity, kiddie glove handling of Scottish culture as they would with maybe more of like a culture of people of color, for example. So like obviously, if I was to ever write something about, Maori culture, for example,
Mm-hmm.
like I would want to be like overly sensitive to the point where I would be asking a lot of questions and a lot of this, is this okay? And sometimes I find that that gets applied to Scotland in a kind of like, is it problematic if I talk about this part of Scottish culture? And I don't see talking about Scottish culture as being
Yeah.
like
So for
problematic,
frame of
if
reference,
you
just
get
to go
me.
back for people that maybe didn't see the TikTok and everything else, we're talking about the white national, not necessarily white nationalists, but a lot of it is white nationalists. The fetishization of Scottish culture in
Mm,
American media, and I was his examples were using a lot of kind of romance, Highlander novel covers because that is a big, huge market of romance, and a lot of it is quite problematic. Um,
mm,
and from what we posted, people were then contacting us, going, if I write about this, am I being disrespectful? Am I fetishizing this? When people don't seem to understand, fetishization means a specific thing.
yep.
Um, and it's not just I enjoy this thing. It is literally I am taking this thing, I am objectifying it to such a point that there is no more truth in it, and I am making up my own kind of fantasy over it. So an example of that would be a lot of people seem to think that Scotland is still in the 16th century. We don't have electricity, and we all still wear kilts, and we're all Highland savages. That is a very common thing that I will still get asked to this day. Is do you guys have television? Yes, because we fucking invented it.
And to be
It's one
honest,
of those.
it
Yeah,
is exactly the sort of thing that you saw from that kind of recent film about, was it a castle in the Highlands or whatever it
yes.
was. It was
Which
the one
I
with
still
Brooke
think we should
Shields.
watch with people. I think we should
Oh
have a
yeah,
Discord party and we should watch it. I think that should be our Christmas thing that we do just to
yeah.
torture
No,
ourselves.
no, I'm down for that. Yeah, well, is it? What is it? Is it a castle for Christmas, or
A castle for Christmas
is
or a
that what it's
laird for
called?
Christmas or something like that. I
Something like
don't
that.
know.
They've all got the same fucking titles,
They
don't
do.
they?
Some
But
like it Scott.
like,
Other not.
yeah, but like, I think that's a very recent example that was published on Netflix. I think
Mm-hmm.
that was announced on Netflix, and like the problem with that is that even though it was trying to do the modern bit, it was still like, oh, the estate doesn't have Wi-Fi. Like, it was like that. And obviously, there are some old buildings in Scotland that have stone fucking walls and Wi Fi doesn't mean shit.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like still trying to have that, like, lack of technology. Oh, you can't get signal up here. Like,
But
that kind of
it's
thing.
so wonderful to be back with. I mean, it does the whole. It's so wonderful to be back with nature. There's no technology. That's the thing. But that's the whole of Scotland isn't a technological void.
Mm,
Like, and that's the way it often gets portrayed.
yeah.
It's one thing to say, yes, this character benefits from going back to nature, not having this thing. Portraying Scotland as a vast wilderness that has nothing in it apart from sheep. That's a problem.
Yeah. There's.
You know,
So,
that's what we object to a lot of the time. Um, and
yeah.
it's also the kind of the whole the noble savage
Yeah, there's a lot of
stereotype.
that.
If you did that with any other culture, specifically in the US, you would be in the shit. But sometimes somehow
Yeah.
it's okay to do to Scotland, which has also been had our culture destroyed, and all sorts of other stuff. It's just it's a weird kind of, well, they're white, so it's okay, and it's a
Yeah.
weird kind of
It's,
American kind of like, well, it can't be problematic because they're white, and you're going, but it's still a culture that's been systematically destroyed and devalued and then turned into a fad.
mm,
And although we don't have a lot of the same clothes practices that's like certain Native American um you know tribes do, but it's there's still aspects of it that are really not great. And it plays into the idea that Scotland is wild and uneducated and all these things that have been used to make Scotland feel very inferior and justify things like us having higher taxes than the rest of
yeah.
England. And like it plays into the idea that we are not worthy of the same we're not as civilized as England.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's interesting because there's like a kind of divergence of the Scottish cringe, like there,
Yes.
because like, so for those of you who don't know, the Scottish cringe, or the Scottish cultural cringe, or the Scottish Caledonian cringe, or whatever it is called, um, it again, it's very, very I've actually got a fucking YouTube script that's like half written about this, but like it manifests itself in lots of different ways. There is that innate feeling of maybe like inferiority, so that might manifest itself like Scottish cringe manifests itself politically. Oh,
Yes.
I don't think Scotland could be independent. I think we are uniquely incapable of running our own country. That is a
Yeah.
manifestation of the Scottish cringe. You've also got things like Scots and Gaelic aren't really languages. Scots in particular gets that more than most.
Yes.
Gaelic gets put in the useless languages basket. Scots gets put into the it's actually just slang, which is also not the case. Scots is a
Yes.
language. Gaelic is a language. English is a language. And you so like that it kind of manifests itself like linguistically as well, and then you've got the cultural bit to that too, where you get into the to be honest, I actually think the cultural thing's more of a reaction to how Scottish culture has been commercialized. Um,
Mhm.
I find it particularly like I don't find it as bad now because I know when I walk past like all the shops in like Edinburgh on the Royal Mile, I know that people are wanting to buy tins of shortbread, and I know that people want to buy like the kind of
The souvenirs and
the
stuff, and
souvenirs
it's
and all the
yeah.
rest of it, and that's fine to kind of like lean into. Where I take issue is maybe more like I'm almost happy to play up with that, like play that tweeness up a little bit when people are visiting Edinburgh, because that's fine. Even the Jimmy hats. I've never been a fan of fucking Jimmy hats at all, but I'm fine as a souvenir. My problem is when it then becomes to how Scotland's represented a bit more internationally. Like I don't
Mhm.
like it. I don't like it when Scotland plays up that tweeness in films, for example. Like, I really, really dislike all of the. I've never really watched Brave all the way through, but like, I hate the Scottish accent jokes. Like,
Yeah.
there's Scottish accent jokes in a whole bunch of films. I think most recently there was one in fucking what's the one with Tom Holland? Uncharted. Um,
Uncharted, yeah.
there was like a really, really bad example there. And I think the problem, probably a continuation of that problem, is when it's like people who aren't Scottish playing that tweeness up.
Yeah.
And hey, McGurker, how you doing? Welcome to the stream. And I think like that's particularly bad. I mean, you know what Tumblr was like when the Scottish Pokemon girl
Yes.
thing came about. That was
I specifically know because there's also Nurse Joy, and everyone now thinks that Nurse Joy is Scottish, and I got endless
Mhm.
requests to fucking read the dialogue.
Great.
It
Lucky
was
you.
it was wonderful.
Yeah.
It was a really fun time, and I just didn't respond to any of it because I was like, no, I am
Yeah.
not your performing monkey.
Monkey,
That is,
yeah.
um, but there's a lot of stuff like that where I mean I don't mind Brave so much, and I actually have a wee bit of a soft spot for it because Brave came out right before my wedding, so
Okay.
all the Americans coming to my wedding were watching it on the plane over.
Right, okay,
but
that's
but it was I don't mind it, but it's not my favorite.
see, like
Um,
the only problem I like again, I've not really watched like the full film. It might be like I imagine from a Disney perspective, it's just perfectly nice, but I can't get over Kelly MacDonald's fucking pronunciation of "if you had a chance to change your fate, would you?" It's just
It's
that bit from the
very
trailer.
yeah,
I hated it.
it's very over the top.
Like,
Um
and
but there are
yeah,
people who do speak like that though. There are people who do have that accent. But
there is.
it's very even Billy Connolly was upping not Billy was it Billy Connolly? Was he the dad?
Uh, it might have been actually.
I think it was him.
I'll look it
Very
up.
good at he's very good at being very recognisably Scottish because obviously
Aye.
he's got a very thick Govan accent.
Yeah, yeah.
For
It
those
was
who,
Billy Connolly.
It was Billy Connolly, and my dad and Billy Connolly actually went to school together. So if you ever wondered what my dad sounds like, that's what my dad sounds like. Is that kind of thick Govan accent.
Mm.
But Billy's also good at being much broader Scots as well.
Mm.
He's very good at enunciating because he did a lot of tours in England and everywhere else where he was constantly getting heckled for "Can I understand you?"
Yeah.
And he's going, "Well, come to Scotland, you know." Like he's like, "It's not my fault that you don't speak Scots, you know."
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was the fake accents, the ones that where they didn't hire, you know, there was one that got me where they had the Doric language in it, and they did actually use Doric, and the
Yeah.
joke was that none of the other Scottish people could understand them, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
But it was that kind of, it was like a meta joke about how no one understands Scottish accents, which I
Yeah.
think was trying to be clever.
But
But
that's
at the same time, it's just another, oh, we can't understand the Scots,
well,
you know?
the most the worst use of that joke is in the second Wreck-It Ralph film,
Yes.
where she meets all of the Disney princesses, and then they get the joke in normally. So like the meta joke in a Scottish context and people not understanding Doric is actually quite funny. Um, because there sometimes is that, especially Central Belt and Highlands, like that's
Yes.
quite funny, but it is within the country. Whereas when Merida's in the second Wreck-It Ralph film, it is just that joke again. And it was the
Yeah.
same with the Tom Holland one in Uncharted. Is it's a sorry, what was that? After the guy says anything, it's just
Every single
it's
time, and
cringe.
it's one of the reasons I don't really speak with my accent over here.
Mm.
And
It does
part of
come
it's
out a
just,
lot when you're speaking to me.
yeah. It's quite funny because you've heard me code switching. If
Yep.
Mothman comes in the background of our chats and everything else, you will hear me code switching, and it's
Yep.
not really intentional with him, but it's more I'm aware of the fact that my accent is not as easy for some people to follow,
Yep.
and it's I mean I've this is part of the Scottish cringe as well. I've talked about it on Tumblr, but I was sent to elocution lessons as a child, partly because I had the speech impediment, but the speech impediment actually came from not being allowed to use my accent.
Mm.
I was being taught to use Queen's enunciation. You must speak in a certain way, you must be clear, you must not have a very thick accent, and that actually gave me the speech impediment. And
Mm.
it was then I had to keep doing speech therapy because I developed the impediment. And part of it was just literally always being told, talk proper,
Yep.
talk proper,
Talk proper.
and
Talk
talk
proper.
proper.
What the fuck?
Yeah, and the thing is, and it wasn't even as bad as the things that I went through were nowhere near as bad as my parents, because my dad, especially when he was in school, capital, you could still have the
Capital
if you
punishment.
spoke. I was going to say capital punishment, not capital punishment. It's
Cor-
corporal punishment,
Corporal punishment.
and it's he would still get the belt. He would still get hit with a cane or something over his hand if he used Scots instead
Mm.
of King's English.
Yeah.
And for my parents, it was very much internalized that I needed to have a posher accent. I needed to sound English if I was going to get a good job.
Yeah. And it
And
was
I
it was
remember,
entirely
yeah,
based around like you can't be speaking like that in a job interview.
yeah,
That is entirely what that whole strand of kind of thought really based itself around of is like you will not
yeah.
get a good job in an office or whatever if you speak with your accent.
And it was, I always thought my parents were overreacting until I got my first office job outside of Scotland. I've again talked about this. When I got my job with the publisher I worked for, they're a medium-sized publisher in the UK. I won't name them. I don't want that lawsuit. But it was I got hired on, and one of the first things they said to me was, you sound so educated. I never would have guessed you're from Scotland.
Fucking hell.
And I remember sitting there at this interview and thinking, I need this job. And I kind of went, well, I put a lot of effort into making sure I'm understandable and blah, blah, blah. And I got put into doing a lot of the Scottish accents, working with the American authors because, funnily enough, the number of people that they were publishing the most of for Scottish romances and Scottish historical stories were American. But they very rarely take Scottish writers. They mostly take Americans. That's another thing as well that I could rant about for centuries. But oh, there's a wee mop. Hello. Anyway, the one of the things they said to me when they were taking me to an American client, and they were like, "Oh well, we've got a Scottish dialect person on team. They'll deal with them." And
they expressed concerns over not being able to understand me, and the publisher's response was, "Don't worry, she's a civilized Scot."
Whoa!
And I'm still incredibly angry. It's been
Fucking
almost a
hell.
decade, and I still get this cold rush of anger when I think about it. And I remember sitting
Fucking
there
hell.
on this conference call, smiling and nodding and going, "That's me. I'm the civilized Scot. I
Yeah.
speak proper.
I speak from fucking hell.
I speak proper. I
See
speak the Queen's English."
It's weird. See if someone fucking said that to me now, I'd be like, shh. I would have been having
I would
words.
fucking belt it.
Yeah, you'd be
It
having
is
fucking
absolutely. I'd be like, there's no amount of money I need to keep me here for this job. But at the time, it was my first career job, and I felt, and my friend had got me the job as well, and it bugged me too because my friend never stood up for me. My friend always just laughed along with it, going, "Well, yeah, you are, and like you're very easy to understand." And I'm going, "Well, none of you make an effort to be understood. I don't understand your southeast. Sometimes you'd say things too quickly, and they'd look at me as if I was the weird one for saying, "Can you say that again, please?" But I was always the one that had to consciously thin out my accent. I was the one that had to speak slowly and clearly at all times, even though it actually makes my stutter come out. And then I go back to my family, go back to my friends, and I'd speak Scots with them. And my mouth would be fine. I wouldn't have any speech impediments. My anxiety would go down. And you think about to yourself, on a cultural level, what that is like and what that does to your sense of identity and also our sense of how we can govern ourselves. Because you are right, it leads into people going, well, we don't have the ability to be our own country. We can't be independent. How can we be trusted? We can barely be understood when we speak.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I find more interesting about, like, I feel like people in England get the idea that of Anglophobia really pushed down on them, because I think it catches a lot of people by surprise. Like, you don't get a lot of Anglophobia, whatever that is. I struggle to find it existing. Surely you might get some anti-English sentiment.
You get people making fun of the lower class accents. I will say that you get people who make fun a lot of the working class accents, and they make fun of it as being British culture. And you're going, it's working class.
But I don't see that as a Scottish thing directed at English working class.
No.
I think that's more of a class issue within England. Whereas, like, I feel there's a lot of people in England who've never been to Scotland, but they hear that we're very anti-English, for whatever reason. And
we're usually anti-Westminster.
Yeah, well, it's the interesting thing. I've had more anti-Scottish sentiment in England than than I imagine the average English person visiting Scotland actually faces towards England. Because, like, sure, there's always going to be a dickhead, right? But, like, everything from, like, refusing to take my fucking money to, like, pretending to not understand me and all the rest of it, it seems to be a very, very English thing to do. I mean, like, unfortunately, I've had the joy of driving up and down England in my youth, for various competitions and stuff like that I was attending. And it was always an absolute fucking nightmare trying to pay for anything. Like, because, they would always just turn up their nose and, oh, we don't accept that here. And it's like, it's fucking money like, anyone else.
The thing it gets
that
is
was
it's
a big
called
thing.
pound sterling.
Yeah.
It's called pound sterling. Where the fuck do you think it came from? And it is
it's
a
like
thing. Like
a Scottish person set up the Bank of England. It was invented by a Scot. But yeah, it's another one of those frustrating things. But one of the asks that, and they're kind of maybe getting back to the linguistic, back to the linguistic aspect of it. But like, so one of the questions I got on Tumblr was fair enough, but it's like, how do I write a Scottish character? And I think a lot of the problems that I have with that is that, like, a lot of the time writing a Scottish character is very deliberate. You're either they're either a Scottish character based on what they wear, or they're a Scottish character based on how they speak. And, like, the example I kind of gave is like, I think some English authors probably get away with some writing regional dialects in England with maybe a couple more apostrophes and, kind of governor, that kind of thing. But you would never write phonetically someone else's accent anywhere else. And the example I gave, and it was an extreme example, and it's based on the kind of the racist stereotype of maybe an Asian character that can't pronounce the L's properly in a word, and so it comes out as if they're saying R's instead. You would never write that phonetically in a book and say,
Not in this day and age.
not in this day and age. You might have had it in the past, but like you don't write how a French person says English words and write it phonetically. You don't really get that. So, like, the differentiation is like, how do you write a Scottish character? Well, you've got to decide, are they going to speak Scots? Or are they just speaking in English? Because if you're wanting to get the accent across, maybe from an author's perspective, you'll know a wee bit more, but like, just say that they've got a Scottish accent. Like, I don't see the need to, like, overdo like, if they're just saying English sentences and they're speaking in English, that's fine. If they're speaking Scots standard English, as in they're speaking English but maybe they pepper it with Scots words, that's another option. But if they're speaking in Scots, then have them speak in Scots, and for the love of God, don't try and phonetically type what you think Scots word sounds like, because that's a recipe for
We
disaster.
literally have dictionaries that you can, if you're desperate to use the correct words, you can go and look up the actual spelling.
Yeah.
And people don't seem to realise that. One of the things I do a lot of for when I'm doing sensitivity readings for some Scottish romances, because there are people who do want to get it right, and kudos to them for that. And they will have, they'll have seen Dinny Ken in like Outlander, and Dinny Ken's fairly hard to mess up, but then they'll phonetically spell out everything else, and it's like, that's not the word for that. Here is the actual Scots word. Oh, I didn't know that existed, and I've actually ended up giving them Scotch dictionaries as a parting gift at the end of sessions that I've done with people. I will literally gift them electronic copies of Scottish dictionaries and go, you don't have to use this. You can literally get away with accent indicators by saying he had a broad West Coast accent, or he had an East Coast twang. There's other ways you can indicate accent. You don't have to do this unless you want to. It's fun to do it if you know how to do it, but you have to know how to do it respectfully and naturally. But it's funny the number of people that are going, well, I didn't even realise it was a real language. I thought I was just writing out a phonetic accent.
And that's where you end up with Scottish Pokemon Trainer.
You do, yeah.
Which still gives me flashbacks.
It's also where you end up with people trying to recreate Scottish Twitter, and they're not realising, they're not even, like, Scottish Twitter is actual words.
Yeah.
And then you get the people trying to recreate it. They're just typing nonsense. Yeah. They could just be key smashing as far as I'm concerned, because they're not typing words.
I think that's the thing that annoys me with, like, groups, like, like Reddit, for example. Like, Reddit started, our Scottish people Twitter, and I hate it, because you can tell, like, it's funny, you can tell the genuine Scottish tweets, you can tell the fake ones, but then you can tell, like, the average Scottish tweets that are being, like, overhyped by people who are just, like, so amazed that the language exists. Like, someone maybe uses the word bobag once, and, like, suddenly it's like really funny viral tweet moment. And I don't know. I don't like Scottish people Twitter, just because I think it's so, like, I feel like it's so overplayed, and I think that's one of the problems with it, is like when. And it kind of started maybe like 2016, Trump was elected, and you had some kind of funny initial tweets where people were like maybe stringing together a couple of insults. You fucking, silly-haired bampaw, or whatever the fuck it was.
The favourite for me was your orange-faced roaster. That was the one I saw the most.
And like,
and then I had to explain to everyone what a roaster is.
And like, that by itself is like fine, but then it kind of almost started this horrible cottage industry of like, I kind of almost want to say middle class people trying to construct their own, like, Scottish. And that's why, you know, like, you silly what's it face kind of starts to like emerge. And
Mm-hmm.
there was this trend on social media of like chaining insults together in the hope that it was like a whole new never said before own. And I don't know. I find like that, to be honest, that's a wee bit of Scottish cringe coming from me there, because it's like
Yeah.
it's I just find it takes what we see casually and tries to turn it into like a big commercialized viral thing. Um, and again, I think like a lot of the Scottish cringe now is really just more of a cringe of how it's commercialized.
Yeah, that to me that's a big part of it, is the commercialization of it, because it is very Jimmy hat, which for people who don't know, a Jimmy hat is the tartan flat cap and it's got orange frizzy hair under it. That's a Jimmy cap.
Yeah.
And it's a very stereotypical, the Scots all wear tartan and they all have ginger hair, and it's, you know, it's mostly a tourist thing. It is mostly a, you know, the tourists wear them. Scots maybe wear them ironically for fun at Hogmanay, but it's also very rooted in the whole idea of, well, they're still up there wearing tartan and they don't, you know, wash their hair, they don't brush their hair. That's the origin of the Jimmy cap.
Don't get me
But
started on kilt discourse.
there's so much kilt discourse.
Oh
But
fuck.
it's just very I've forgotten my point now, but
Sorry.
it's you know, it's that kind of it wasn't you that made it was just my own brain going off in its tangent in my head. But it was, you know, there's so much of it is just rooted in, you know, selling the image of Scotland, and it's not what Scotland is. It's the idea of Scotland from the Victorian era based on what two German people thought it was, and
Yeah.
it's that kind of, you know, fair dues to Vicky and Albert. They loved Scotland because they thought it, you know, it reminded Albert of Germany, Prince Albert of Germany. But it was that very kind of, they took the mythology of Scotland and they commercialized it because they
Yeah.
wanted their own little fantasy. They were cosplaying as ancient Scottish kings and queens who had the right to the land. They were leaning into the mythology and they commercialized that. So the commercialization of the Royal Highland Mile in Edinburgh stems back to Queen Victoria, and it's that very kind of, it feels very grating when you yourself are being repeatedly told you are not allowed to use your accent in school because it is not real English. You cannot wear certain types of clothing because it is seen as rebellious and inflammatory.
Yeah.
You know, things like Scottish dance, like, you know, sword dancing and everything else, had a major resurgence when I was younger, and it was because you were finally allowed to do it in schools again. Because there were some schools that it was banned in because it was seen to be, you know, oh, that's inciting towards anti-English sentiment. And it's like, how is my culture existing anti-English sentiment?
Yeah.
You know, and it was
Sorry, I remember. Sorry, that's just reminded me of a thing where it was like a question time in Northern Ireland, and like a boy's saying, if you find me speaking Irish offensive, it's because you've built your society on my land. um, which I thought was like fucking oh snap. It was really good, but like he was talking about it to like a unionist MP or something like that, and he was like, yeah, that's like if you take issue and you think there shouldn't be an
if
Irish Language Act in Northern
it's
Ireland.
literally, it is literally the idea, if it's not English, it's offensive, and it shows you how ingrained it is in our own society as well, that a lot of us have an immediate, like, I remember when I was wee, Highland Games were seen as extremely cringy. Like, why would you go to the Highland Games? It's just people doing. And you're going, well, no, it's actually, the Highland Games were also made into a thing. It was a big celebrated thing because Queen Vicky wanted to watch a lot of men in kilts throwing logs around. Like, that was when they fully became popular as they are today. And
Yeah,
it stems from the commercialization of things that we did for like holidays and stuff, things for like the summer festivals. And now it's a big whole, it's not just the festival, it's Scottish festival,
yeah,
you know? And it feels weird to be in Scotland and you're being told this is the Scottish festival, and I'm going, truly it's just a festival.
yeah. I mean,
You
I
know?
think like if we go back to like I think that's something that annoys me a wee bit about the Edinburgh Fringe in general, because you've had people going, oh, we need to make sure the streets are tidy because this is when the world comes to Scotland.
The world's
The
always in
the
fucking
I was
Scotland. It's
I
one of
was
the
like,
biggest tourist destinations in the world.
I don't know, I was like, maybe Edinburgh maybe the world should have a fucking like time off. You know, like Edinburgh needs a bit of rest. The world can like piss off for a wee bit. There doesn't constantly need to be a festival. Because of course, like there's the Edinburgh Fringe. There's like festivals pre-Fringe. There's the Edinburgh Fringe. Then there's the Book Festival immediately after it, and then there's gearing up for fucking the Christmas festival, and then there's Hogmanay. Edinburgh
I'm
doesn't
gonna
get a
come out and say
rest.
it, I don't like the Edinburgh Fringe.
No, me neither. Me neither
I
at all.
don't like it.
Having lived in Edinburgh for several years and like living in the city while the Fringe is on, you can't fucking get anywhere. It's like there is nothing worse than trying to get from A to B in Edinburgh during the Fringe, because it's like, you know, people try to leaflet you from all fucking angles, and you're just like, I live here, please fuck off.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
I don't need to be made aware of the Fringe. I live here. I have to listen to it for a fucking month out of the year.
Yeah.
And it's already, you know, I understand wanting to have that. And I do quite like the book festival, but even then, the book festival is substantially, you know, I went to the book festival when I was at university doing Scottish linguistics, and the number of Scottish authors that were present compared to non-Scottish authors was minimal. I'm going, it's the Scottish Book Fair. It's the Scottish Book Festival, and we have maybe 5 Scottish authors on the panel this year.
See, this is
100.
This is my frustration with the actual festivals in Edinburgh. It's like, you know, I love the fact that Edinburgh's a tourist destination. I think it's great. It's a stunning city. It's incredibly walkable. There's lots of things to see there. I just wish that the people who live in Edinburgh actually saw the benefit of the festival every year.
Yeah, because they don't.
Because they don't. A lot of the time, like any of the caterings and the food stalls and all of the rest, all the pop-up stuff, like, you know, it's not like they're looking for local part-timers to leaflet and they're paying them through the nose. You know, they're paying them really well. You know, it's none like that. It is capitalist as shit. It is, you know, basically all of the hotels like just increase their prices. The festival is why Airbnb in Edinburgh is an absolute blight. If all of you haven't already seen it, you should watch my YouTube video on, it's called Edinburgh's Underbelly, and it's particularly about Underbelly as an organisation who organise all of this. Now, as far as I'm aware, they actually lost the right to do that this year. But for the longest time, the festival and everything that the festival's kind of been like built up towards has been ran by Underbelly. And Underbelly just, you know, ripped the shit out of it to the point where Underbelly in like block off roads during Hogmanay, right? And they then ask residents who live on those roads to prove that they live in their residence in order to get access to their own fucking property. And that annoyed the shit out of me. There was a bit there, and I think it was pre-pandemic, but what happened was, if you lived on one of the streets that Underbelly were hosting the street party, you weren't allowed to have your own Hogmanay party and invite people to your flat. I think you were allowed
to interfere with it, yeah.
Well, it was in case they went into the flat and then went down to join the street party. And it's like, so they limited it. You were only allowed 6 or 8 people in your house to have a Hogmanay party. And if you're if you're a family, or if you're if 3 people are sharing a flat and they want to hold a Hogmanay party, you get to invite 5 guests. That's it. You're like, what the fuck? So
they did that with them. They do the pagan fire festivals every so often in Edinburgh. I don't know if they're still doing them with the pandemic.
They do it once a year, I think.
They do it once a year now, but it was literally you had to buy a ticket to walk down the street.
Yeah. I think there's...
And it's mind-boggling. I mean, they tried they did a fire festival in Glasgow one of the years before I left, and they did not, because they were walking up Buchanan Street, and I'm going, can you fucking imagine if they tried to charge people to walk up Buchanan Street?
Yeah, you'd be told fuck off.
They'd be hanging from the
Lampposts.
lights, the lampposts by their teeth.
Yeah.
You know, just they get booted up there straight away. And I'm going, only Edinburgh, you can get away with charging to walk down a street that you fucking live on, and there's massive amounts of commercial business there.
See,
they tried to do it in Glasgow, they'd get punted.
It's interesting, right? Because see, just talking about this, I kind of like it dawned on me. It's like, this is why so many people like Stardew Valley, right? Because there's so many, like, take that Pagan Fire Festival, right? That would have just have been an event back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it was a random event until very, very recently. Because for anyone who doesn't know, I am pagan. I used to go to these events just for my community and everything else. And it never used to be charged. It was just a thing, and then people realized, oh, we can charge for this.
So yeah, this is why people like Stardew Valley, because every festival throughout the many months on Stardew Valley, all of it is entirely free. You can just, they hold a Halloween party festival thing, and you can just go. You can just go and have fun. So I feel like we need to get back to Stardew Valley. Capitalism needs overthrown. Who would have thought an AyeSphere episode where we talk about
crossing more Stardew Valley?
I was gonna say, who would have thought an AyeSphere episode when we're talking about overthrowing capitalism? We've never done that before. But no, I think like again, I'd say the fringe festivals, like that commercialization again of kind of.
There's no heart and soul to it anymore.
Nah, there's not, and like. Again, because like it's Edinburgh's festival in kind of name only. There's there's a lot of your kind of Oxford, Cambridge, like I'm here to put on a play, or here's my comedy show. Like there's a lot of that, and there's like don't get me wrong, there's people from all over the world that come, but at the same time, I think there's it's never loud and proud like Scottish acts, and then of course there's not much benefit that kind of ripples out to the rest of the population in Edinburgh.
Yeah. And the thing is, I don't mind seeing other people there. I don't mind seeing the other representation. It's the fact that we don't even see any of our own representation.
Yeah, it's that, and then they come and they moan about the bins.
Yeah, I would rather see more cultural diversity at these things, because it would therefore also be more of an accurate representation of the people of Scotland.
Yeah.
I would rather see more diversity than what we currently have, which is a very sanitised, very capitalistic, very, shortbread tartan tin box version of it, which doesn't represent the people of Scotland who are diverse.
See, I mean, this is one of the things that. And as That's Their Bunny's saying, there's been lots of like TikTok videos throughout the fringe, and it's been a lot of English people have like come up to Scotland, and it is like their own wee like cosplay, I've experienced a wee bit of Scotland, like there was a lot of people like, oh, a caramel wafer or like a Tunnocks tea cake, and like they're making it so.
Look at this unheard of thing that I've never seen before. You can fucking buy them in Disneyland in Florida.
It's like, it was like when I was in fucking St Andrews and I was at that horrible Tory chip shop, and it's like you have they had translations for what a supper was, which irked me to no end. But then you've got like the folk behind us were a bunch of like English students at the university, and they went up, and it's like just hearing them like loudly ponder a deep fried Mars bar. And of course, the lassie behind the till was a part-time English student at the university as well. And she's saying, "Oh, well, the deep fried Mars bars are actually quite good. You wouldn't really expect them to be all that nice." And it was the worst. It's like
as if it's a Scottish delicacy.
Yeah. It's like you've got the deep fried Mars bar is like overhyped to death, right? It's a funny joke, right? But like these people think of it as like, oh, it's a cuisine that we chucked a
our hearts, and we don't give a shit.
It's like we dipped a Mars bar in batter and deep fried it. It's not that.
You know, the one
special.
thing I had that was actually life changing, and I am so sad I will never have it again. It was a deep fried Cadbury's cream egg.
Oh, that sounds. That sounds.
And it was my my diabetic father who introduced me to it, and I said to him, "You can't have that." And he went, "I can only have it once." And then, and then he went and took his insulin. But it was that was the one thing that I'm going, "Oh, that's actually quite nice." But it's not something I would call a Scottish cuisine. It's more of a
No.
I want to get fucked up on sugar for a weekend thing.
Yeah.
And it's not a Scottish thing. It's a universal bad decision thing. I mean, you go to the state fair here in Minnesota, everything's deep fried. You're more likely to get a deep fried Mars bar here than you are in Scotland.
Yeah. I mean, like, one of the things I do actually enjoy introducing people to, and I have introduced several people to the concept of it. They might have not been able to get access to it. But I remember many a stream I've talked about the Munchie Box, and that is a
Yes.
very, very Scottish thing. Mainly because we like eating shit in a pizza box, effectively.
We do.
But for those of you who are interested, look up a Munchie Box on Google and you'll be really, really hungry. There's different versions of them. I'm going to end up talking myself into wanting a Munchie Box now. But, like, I don't know. I think there's just... Like, again, it's great the attention that Edinburgh gets, but I think because it's not countered with benefits for people,
The money doesn't
who
go into
live,
the community.
because the money doesn't go into the community, you actually end up resenting a lot of the people who visit. And like, again, it's not so much in a like tourists who come from further afield are fine. You know, like it's really cool to see some of the acts come from like China and Thailand and, you know, all that, like, you know, because it is a global thing. It's just sometimes when you see, I don't know, just it all being very, I don't know. There's a thing
You know
there
what
with
I have
like
never
loads of
seen at
British
the Fringe?
media, loads and loads of British media people, and loads of proper like mid-tier fucking comedians from like other parts of the UK who like come up and it's like Scotland's their wee personal playground for a couple of weeks and then they fuck
Yeah.
off home and, like, you know, it just, I don't know, it annoys me.
The one thing I've never seen at any of the arts festivals in Scotland, I have never seen Shakespeare in the Park with a Scottish accent.
Which is
And
bizarre, actually.
And the thing that bugs the shit out of me is Shakespeare did not have where he came from in England, in Stratford-upon-Avon, he did not have a Queen's English accent. He would have
No, he
sounded
didn't.
like a farmer.
Yeah.
Those plays would have sounded like they were written by someone with a northern accent, someone that had a lower class accent.
But they
yet
were
always
also all for,
you know,
those people. Like, it was plays for for the working
people in
class,
the pit
you know?
would have been working class.
Yeah.
They would not, and the people in the seats maybe had more money. They would have been the upper nobles and everything else. But his plays were meant for everyone, and yet every year at the Fringe, the Scottish, you know, the Royal Shakespeare Society does the thing in the park, and you never hear anybody with anything other than perfect BBC elocution.
Yeah.
And it is pissing annoying because until you have heard, I mean, there's a guy on TikTok in the minute. He's doing Shakespeare readings in a very, very thick Southern working class accent, and it is glorious. It is you can actually hear the emotion behind things, and to me it's really wonderful because you think about it, that accent is probably closer to what a Scottish accent would have been at that time because it's, you know, the way the immigration worked and everything. And to me, you can actually hear the inflections and you can hear the emotions that you don't get when everyone is speaking as if they're all,
Fucking-
you know, like, you know.
Macbeth speaking with like a plummy BBC accent, you know?
Yeah, and it's really kind of yeah, the guy that reads in his pickup, lovely scientist, that guy, he is wonderful. I would pay money to hear him do entire plays because he is so good at it, and it makes me really resentful of the fact that certain arts and things like that have been put into this upper echelon of the upper classes when it's not.
That's again like
art belongs to everybody, so why are people being excluded based on whether or not they can pay a massive ticket to go to the fucking Edinburgh Festival?
To be honest, we've kind of raised another good point there that I find, but again, particularly irksome about the Edinburgh Fringe is because of the accommodation cost.
Yes.
You drive all of the working class performers out, because I mean I'm not joking. Like some some hotel rooms in Edinburgh are £450 a night, right?
That's their
That's
standard.
that's what it gets to. And then you've got some Airbnbs for the people who maybe missed the cheap ones. Airbnbs will charge £600 a room per night. And that's like, again, that when I'm talking about how like a lot of your kind of upper middle class, your Oxbridge, your Cambridge get to like kind of swan up to Edinburgh, that's kind of what I'm meaning, because like you probably don't see a lot of like punters from more working class areas in England or Wales or wherever. It's very much like Southeast England comes to Scotland for a couple of weeks, and I find that particularly annoying. Just because I know
What
that
it could be
there's
is you literally just get a bus full of people. They come up, they enjoy the arts, and they go back down again. But it's not. It's as you say. It's a bunch of people that can afford to be there,
yeah,
and
and
it's
it's
wrong.
yeah. And the worst thing is like all the restaurants and all the pubs fucking know this, and like because Edinburgh exists in a state of almost constant festival, it's like they can justify any sort of price increase, because it's like tourist money and resident money are two very different things. And that's why, like, it was frustrating when I worked in Edinburgh. In fact, the Apple store was pretty good for it, but like when I worked in a certain Multrees Walk fashion shop, it was insufferable, because you were being like, you were selling stuff and that was great, but then the problem with it is you were being asked to treat clients as if they were people in London, and Edinburgh's local clientele wouldn't have the money. Like it's the sort of thing like, so scarf in the shop that I'm trying to avoid saying the name of. A scarf in the shop was like 250 quid to 350 quid, right? That was the range. So for a lot of people local to Edinburgh, whether it's someone down in Leith or someone who's maybe coming from, Stirling or whatever, unless they were absolutely fucking loaded, they'd probably get one scarf either as a birthday present or whatever. But we were insisted we were to keep a wee logbook, and we were to get all their personal details, and we were to send them marketing emails and be their own personal shopper and email them every so often, being like, oh well, your bags or your scarf's not complete without the bag that's £800 and the coat that's £1,600. Like you got into that like kind of mindset, or at least that was what was pushed there. And that's the same for a lot of the shops. Like a lot of the shops really do go like full on in regards to the tourists that are there, and don't really understand the actual local local residents, that
Yeah.
again just don't ever see that money get passed down. And like the council, obviously me and Jessica used to live across Meadowbank. Meadowbank Stadium was getting redone, new state of the art, kind of like fitness place. But like living in Edinburgh throughout the Fringe, you never got the feeling that like the city was being made into this stunning place because of all the tourist money that was being done. I mean, I can't believe that a tourist tax hasn't been introduced in Edinburgh. Like there should be an
Yeah.
additional pound per night, per hotel room, and that money could be directly poured into local community centres and projects and all the rest of it, and it just doesn't fucking happen.
When the thing is, they want it to be the most vibrant city. They want it to be
Yeah,
all these wonderful things, and they do achieve it. But you think what they could achieve if they were actually being taxed
yeah,
for things, and they actually put the money into the community. It is mind-boggling to me how wonderful it could be for the local community if they
yeah.
were able to take advantage of that. But they're not allowed to.
Yeah.
And it is nonsense. It is absolutely just galling that it's, it's the same with, certain parts of Glasgow. I mean, there's potholes in Glasgow that are becoming their own constituency. It's getting to the point where it's getting and you're going, well, why aren't we allowed to take the money from this event? Well, that money has to go back into the event planners. And you're going, right, the people that just made a smooth $1 billion from
Yeah.
funding, and meanwhile we're getting told just to drive around the new ravine that just opened up outside City Hall Street, and it's
Yeah.
just it really does gall me that the fact that the money doesn't go into the community.
Yeah.
And it's just
And
so much that if you're going to have these huge tourist events, it
yeah.
should be for the benefit of the local area, but it
But I
never
mean,
is.
And I think Eli Catkin's making a really good point as well in chat, just like the North Coast 500. So the North Coast, like, again, it's wonderful that people want to visit Scotland, and I'm absolutely not anti-tourist by any means. I think
It's wonderful. It's a great industry for Scotland.
The frustration comes when we're we're a relatively small country, and the issue that we had, like, Edinburgh and Glasgow were both on the top 5 cities in the world to visit, right, this year.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, okay, so people are earmarking Edinburgh and Glasgow as a tourist thing. People who are maybe a bit more adventurous want to do the North Coast 500. The people who live around North Coast 500 are fucking sick of the disrespectful arseholes who, they'll fucking camp on their land without asking permission. They'll fucking park, like, the roads will be just lined up with cars for ages. And I think there's a wee bit of a it's almost like an over-tourism problem. And the problem is that's also impacting things like the housing market here, because people are seeing loads of tourists come, so they're starting to do Airbnb, and they're buying to let, and all the rest of it. All of the holiday let homes in the Highlands are being bought up, specifically with the idea of fleecing people with tourist money. And it means that, people can't actually afford to live in the Highlands and Islands. People get priced out. It doesn't matter if you're born in Skye, you're getting priced out of a house in Skye. Because if you want to buy a home in, like, anywhere in the Western Isles, you better have 250k like stored up, because there is no first time buyer
for a place that's probably going to need massive renovations as well.
Yeah, and like it's then, yeah, exactly, and then the communities die on the back of that, because all that exists is just holiday lets. And one of the things that's really sad walking around Edinburgh is, like, you can, like, you'll walk past a building that looks like a standard building, probably like 8 to 12 flats in it, and you'll be able to count the number of the drilled in wall keypads. So, like, for people, they just get the code via Airbnb and then they go up to the flat. Sometimes you're walking past and there is 8 fucking boxes attached to the side of, like, a closed door. And it's just really sad, like,
it is.
I mean, like, I think there's a lot of policy that needs to be sorted with, like, just tourism. And it's great from, like, a soft power perspective, don't get me wrong. If we want to get loads of people on side for independence, Scotland was lovely, I think they could probably do that themselves. Like, that's all well and good, but at the same time it shouldn't ever be at the expense of people who live here, because I know people who just can't afford to live in Edinburgh now, so they move out. And then it means that you've essentially got like giant commuter communities being set up, which is a massive problem, because it means that, like, so the people that work, services in Edinburgh, like your council workers that are wanting a decent fucking wage, like, they don't want to be driving into Edinburgh for 40 minutes to then fucking clean the bins.
Yeah.
They want to be able to live in Edinburgh and then fucking get to their job. So, it's going to come round and bite them if we don't solve the Airbnb fiasco. I actually long for a world where Airbnb is banned. No, I'm not joking. I genuinely think
I remember you talking about it before.
Airbnb should be banned. Like, full stop. I don't actually think, like, Airbnb was fine when you had to live in the property and you were renting out a spare bedroom for someone who was maybe staying a couple of nights. That was fine. When people effectively started to become Airbnb landlords and,
Yeah.
buying property specifically to Airbnb, and of course, because there wasn't that, because people are only staying a couple of nights, they don't need to be beholden to any of the laws that a landlord has to comply by. There's all that issue as well. Sorry, I've been ranting too long now and there's a strain on my
Your
throat.
voice is going wrong. Good thing we've only got 5 minutes left.
I know, I'm choking on my arse here. At least you've still got water. I finished this fucking ages ago. I'm still struggling.
I've got a giant gallon bottle beside me. That's how I still have water.
I'm gonna need to find, like, I'm gonna have to fill 2 of these. That's what's gonna happen.
Is there an interesting comment there from, I can't scroll up, Foxy Moxy 114.
Oh, God.
Since I am not a Scottish person and would love to visit someday, is there a way to be sure any money I spend is actually benefiting local businesses? I'm not sure it's an easy way to find out, but when I worked in a lot of the tourist industries, you would have things that were advertised as locally owned, and that can sometimes be a good way to look into that as well. I would look for bed and breakfasts over Airbnbs, because the bed and breakfast people live there for the most part. And there are, the kind of there's always the big hotel chains as well. But they tend to pay their taxes for the local area if you go to the bigger hotel chains as well. And just trying, eating at chain restaurants is fine. You don't have to eat for the local things, but in places like Edinburgh and Glasgow, you will find wonderful local cuisine places as well, and they tend to be buying from local butchers and local fishmongers and local farmers, and that can be a good way as well if you're really interested in tasting Scottish cuisine. That can be a good way of doing that, as well as looking for wee independent restaurants. You'll find about 1 million of them on the Royal Mile.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, the Royal Mile is mostly small local businesses with a couple of chains thrown in.
Except the souvenir shops.
Except the souvenir shops. The souvenir shops tend to be under huge companies.
Well, all owned by one family. Like,
Yeah,
it's the same tat in each one, and it's all owned by one family. I've unfortunately had to serve the owner of that.
Yes. I'm more familiar with it from a food and hospitality aspect, because that's what I did for 5-6 years. But yeah, that can be a really good way, is to look for things that either proclaim that they're locally owned, or to just try and look for things that are wee bits more smaller establishments that have a wee bit less touristy stuff on it. There's a fantastic seafood place on the Royal Mile, which I'm currently blanking on the name, but everything they get is caught local every day, with the exception of Sundays, because the fishermen don't go out on Sundays. And all of their produce comes from local farmers that are around Edinburgh, and it's really, the food is like nothing else you will taste anywhere else for a lot of these places, and that can be a really good way of getting to experience actual Scottish cuisine, and not just what this chain restaurant thinks Scottish cuisine is.
There's a really good one in the Grass Market as well called the Mussel and Steak Bar, and it's wonderful. Like, that was good.
Yeah.
That was where I went after my graduation. It was really nice.
There's also a lot of some of the museums and things like that. This will sound weird, but the museums like the Kelvin Grove and the House for an Art Lover, their catering is actually all council owned, so the money that is spent in there goes back into the community. I know that because I worked there. So it's, the money tends to go either into the university because they own parts of the Kelvin Grove, or it goes into the local council. So a lot of the stuff like the museums and things, like the museum foods, the places inside the castles, although it is expensive and sometimes not the best, it does fund the actual running costs of the castle and keeping things maintained. So that can be another good way of, if you're more on the touristy side of things, a lot of those catering things are set up by Scottish Trust. It's not going anywhere else. Most of it's going into the Scottish Trust and Scottish Visit Scotland. So that's another good way of doing that as well. So yeah, that's just me extolling 6 years worth of working for the tourist industry in Scotland.
No, that's good. As much as we've ranted about the Edinburgh Festival, and I know I got way ahead of myself there, but it was. I think there's a lot to love about it, and I encourage.
The Scottish Tourism Board actually does a lot of conservation stuff. The thing is, a lot of these current popular events are not being organised by the Scottish Trust, and that's where we're running into problems.
Yeah.
So you're better off visiting places that have either the Visit Scotland logo or the Scottish Trust or Scottish National or Scottish, Scenic. And if it's got any other sort of commercialised logo, it's probably the money's not going into Scotland, it's going somewhere else.
Yeah.
So,
I drove past the Bannockburn Centre the other day, and
they've had huge renovations.
It's had massive renovation, but it looks stunning. It looks honestly, it looks like an ideal day out. I remember when I went before it was renovated when I was a wee kid, and they they did the dress up, but they actually put chainmail on you and stuff like that, and it was like in my element.
I have a fun story about that as well, but yeah, there was we went to Stirling Castle when I was 12 maybe, and they were all getting us to get dressed up and everything else. And Stirling Castle is a very different experience from Edinburgh Castle. It's a lot smaller. I prefer it actually.
I like it a lot.
It's a wee bit less touristy. But
there's loads of history though. There's loads and loads of history with there.
And we were all in the Rose Garden dressed up in kind of Scotch, the clothes you would have been wearing in Tudor Scotland at that time. And there was all these American tourists filming us because they thought we were part of a historical recreation show to show like a royal nursery or something. And there was all these people watching us, and it was like the teachers were kind of going, I don't think you need permission to film other people's kids. It was like a whole thing. But it is a fun day out for the kids because you get to dress up and do things, and the castles tend to be really well run for the tourist stuff.
Yeah.
They also do a great deal of conservation as well. Like the Stirling Castle does a lot of tapestry conservation, and you can actually go in and watch people doing traditional Scottish weaving as they restore tapestries, and it's fabulous to see that sort of thing. So there's not every aspect of Scottish tourism is a bust. There is a lot of good stuff that goes into it, but there is a huge over commercialization of places that have essentially taken over because they could afford to do it better, and it's just lost the soul.
Yeah,
that's the real issue. There's people that have moved in, and it's been overly commercialized. So yeah, that's kind of like it's not to say, well, don't come to Scotland and don't participate in the tourism. Please do.
Please do.
Just be mindful of where you're doing it. Yeah. And the joyful thing is, a lot of even the tour buses, like the Glasgow tour bus, a lot of that money goes back into Glasgow Council.
Yeah.
So that's all good. Like I love the for any of you vampire and ghoul lovers, the haunted tour buses are fantastic around Glasgow and Edinburgh. Yeah. Love those to pieces. But just look for the official Scottish Tourist Board stuff, and you can't go wrong. That's it. Yeah.
There we go. Right, so I suppose we've kind of reached the end of this one. I know it was we've been away for 2 weeks, so it's been many a tangent as you fucking
it's
come
2 weeks worth of tangents.
They just boil up. But yeah, so what? Obviously we are yet to unveil a logo and banner and all the rest of it. That should be coming fairly soon. We think we're kind of getting to the end of that.
We're getting official.
Yeah, we are getting.
You're getting professional.
To be honest, actually, until we have a logo, all of this is just practice. I'm not counting. Yeah, it's like I'm not counting. This is season 1 starts effectively. This has been one long pilot. But yeah, we'll be getting fairly official soon. We'll even have a Twitter account. Actually, we already have a Twitter account. We just don't have any photos on it yet, so we don't really want to announce it. But yeah, we'll hopefully be able to share that with you fairly soon. A logo and banner and all this kind of stuff. So it'll be really good. We are quite chuffed with how it's turned out so far.
Yeah, it's looking good.
So maybe by next week. I don't know, but I don't want to rush anyone. But yeah, maybe by next week. Who knows? It'd be good to be able to share it. But
it would.
Yeah, so we'll push in on that. Of course, you can catch all of our previous episodes on YouTube right now. Despite not having a logo or a banner, is very much the kind of archive, all on YouTube there. Would very much recommend that you all go and subscribe to that, because subscribers really kind of feed our ego. So
that's the only reason we're doing this
that,
at this point.
yeah, like that's all we care about. Like all we care about is numbers go up. So just like go and give us a subscribe. Hopefully when we get the logo and stuff set up, we'll also be able to pull the audio, and we'll be able to put it onto
actual podcast
various podcasting platforms. We do have like accounts kind of set up, and that'll do that. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But yeah, I'll go and say that you should all buy Joy's book. Obviously, if you haven't already bought your copy of Hunger Pies, you know what the brilliant thing is actually, Joy? See, occasionally I'll have people come up to me and be like, I'm actually like close to me in my actual real life outside of Ivor, Scotland, and they'll be like, I'm really looking for like a book, and I just go, bam, there's a link to PayHip. Go nuts. And I give those people the exact same link I dropped in the chat there. So all of you should go and buy a copy of Joy's book if you haven't already, and if you have, get a second one, to be honest.
Or gift it to your friends, because you can also use PayHip to gift copies to your friends. Just let them know that you're gifting copies, because yesterday I had a lot of people going, I didn't buy this, but I have a copy, and I'm going, that's because someone loves you.
That's because someone cares about you a lot. Also, you can support Joy on Patreon. Now, Joy, I'm not sure if you prefer me to post your Patreon or your Ko-Fi.
Either or.
But yeah, you can support Joy on Patreon there. I believe you get access to a bunch of behind the scenes stuff, as well as Joy's Discord.
Yes. And speaking of Discord, if you haven't already, please join Aye's Discord. It's got a lot of fun people there, a lot of wonderful people. You'll always have someone to talk to. Aye, when he's not choking on his own saliva, is also in there. I've been
texting Jessica, being like, water, please, dying. Jessica, please, water. But no, I'm being left, so I'll need to jump off after this and get some water.
And you can also help buy some libations by supporting him on Ko-fi, which would be wonderful if you do, because he does a lot for the community, and he's currently looking for work. Yeah. So please do support our boy. He needs it.
If you have any work you need being done and I can do it remotely, just give me a shout. I'm not joking. If you want anything proofread, website design, you fucking name it, please just like give me that shit, because I need it, to be honest. Urgently. All right, okay, you were just ignoring me. Thanks, Jessica. Okay, sound right. So we'll love you and leave you there. Thank you very much for joining after a 2-week hiatus. We'll hopefully have more for you next week, and yeah, hope to see you again. Also, if you would like, sorry, just before we do go, if you have any topics that you would actually like us to cover, we're actually open to suggestions as well. As much as this is a kind of interactive podcast and we go off on our various tangents, we do also like kind of hearing what you'd like us to discuss. We've talked...
Yeah, tell us what you want to hear. We're open to being told what to talk about as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, if you donate to us, you basically get to like decide what we talk about. We'll just shill for you, basically. So if any companies are there watching, I will shill your products like fuck. Just pay us.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how to make Pokemon.
We've gone off here into the capitalistic realm of we're selling out. We'll talk about anything.
No. It's not capitalism when we sell out, Joy. It's only capitalism when everyone else does. It's fine. But no, that's great. Thanks very much, folks, and we will see you in the next one. Hope you all have a good rest of your Sunday or week.
Enjoy the rest of your week. I hope it's a kind one. I hope it's good to you.
Catch you in a bit, folks.
Bye-bye.